So you've probably heard of the term detox and detox retreat and all sorts of ways to detox. And the question is, are you as confused as many people, well, as I used to be? Because it certainly is confusing because there are so many different detox programs. And I have to say, and you'll find out that a lot of them are just a total waste of time because they work partially, but then they do more damage elsewhere. So in today's episode of the Natural Medicine Podcast, we're going to talk about an all important, and it is important, aspect of detoxification. Welcome to our show. So, first of all, my name is Harun Rabbani, and I'm joined by Dr. Ashish Paul. Ashish, welcome back.
Good evening, Harun. We are just smiling because we were having a laugh, taking a picture
Well,
before.
we're always having a joke and a laugh because you know what? We deal with both Ashish and I deal with a lot of people with very difficult, life threatening issues.
Yeah,
And we're not laughing at them. Sorry, it's if you're not playful about
yeah.
your health, then it becomes a lot more difficult to manage, to control, and to reverse. So let's talk about natural detox. Before we detox, we've got detox organs. What are they, Ashish? And tell us a bit more about that.
Well, good evening, everybody. I am excited to be here. This is our Natural Medicine podcast and going live every Monday evening. And we like to make it as easier and simpler for you so that knowledge or information is taken in. And my idea with doing these lives, and I'm sure, Harun, it's yours as well, is for you to utilize it. Whoever is watching now on live or on replay, is to use these this bite-sized information and to utilize in whatever the health issue is. So regarding the detox, so we detox via four main ways. One is via the kidney, which is the waterway, called the waterways of the body. Number two is liver, via the liver detox, which is the blood way. Then we have the skin, via the perspiration, we are detoxing, and via your breath. So breathing in, breathing out is also detoxing. Actually, at the cellular level, that is what is really detoxing. So these are the four ways to detox, to get rid of the toxins built up. And we do have a lot of toxins.
And so, if first of all, I mean, we can assume. Well, I don't know if I want to assume that, but the liver and the kidney, the four areas that we detox from, four organs, generally they're effective, right? They work properly for most people.
Yeah.
Okay, so then why is it that somebody needs to go outside of their natural ability to detox?
Okay. So, well, we know this 100% in today's day and age. Most of people's gut is compromised. Most of people's breathing is compromised. We are not breathing very well. Most of people breathe from one side of the nostril, not the both, and we should be breathing equally or at least partially equally from both sides. And then our systems are not as clean, the food is not as clean, the air we breathe is not as clean. So even though our bodies have natural way of detoxing, and that is why we are still alive, because otherwise, if our body couldn't cope with it, then we wouldn't be able to sustain ourselves, or body will not be able to sustain itself. However, the detox load is a lot, because of which we do see a lot of, for example, autoimmune state or autoimmune condition as such is when your system is turning against itself. Yeah. And that comes from when it cannot cope with certain things, cannot cope with all this load that it is getting from food, from air, from water supply. So that is why we need to be extra careful, and we need to do activities actively to detox. And detox actually in Ayurvedic medicine has been mentioned thousands of years ago. So there must be a value to that.
Yeah, that's interesting because what I was going to say was the human body has been designed, has evolved to be able to naturally detox, but the level and Ayurveda has been around thousands of years. So if it's been
Yeah.
doing it, then I'm just wondering the impact of air pollution, water pollution, food pollution. So if you're not
Mm.
eating organic, natural, etc., and fresh, food pollution,
Yeah.
the amount of diseases that young children are developing. I mean, when I was a kid, I'd not heard of eczema, not heard of asthma, and so many other conditions, not because it didn't, well, the fact is it didn't exist for most people, you
Yeah.
know. So all of that, and on top of that, if you look at the workload we have and the chronic stress, it is
Yeah.
totally and utterly suppressing our immunity and our ability to fight back. So, okay, so in terms of the toxins, toxin is the poisons, in terms of the kind of toxins that people are basically having to detox, what are you noticing? What are the most common toxins that people are struggling with?
Yeah. So when we talk about toxins, toxins is yes, there are actual toxins like heavy metals, for example, or the people who work in those kind of industries or those kind of jobs that they do where they're inhaling, maybe, I don't know, arsenic or lead, or it's in the system. Those are real life threatening or endangering toxins we are talking about. However, I am also talking about the daily toxins that we are dealing with, the daily toxins in terms of the food that we eat. When it is not good for your body and system, it is a toxin for you. Or if you're eating too much sugar, is a toxin for you. If you're eating too much salt, is a toxin for you. So
Mm.
don't just think that toxin is something which is, only happening in terms of heavy metals, but toxins is daily stuff. And what I am seeing is um, that yes, there is certainly a need to cleanse. So, from Ayurvedic perspective, from natural medicine perspective, once a year cleanse is recommended. So you do that in the spring. The major cleanse is in the spring when you do full Panchkarma program or any kind of cleansing that you would like to do, and you do mini cleanse. Now, this is the season of cleansing. We are
Mm.
entering into winter, and this is what we call Ritu Sandhi, as we are between two seasons. So this is perfect time for mini detox.
So we obviously develop work with different types of people, and sometimes there's crossover. One of the things I find is, and it's just surprising so few people are aware of this. So people with type 2 diabetes, for example, have got a massive level of fungus inside of them, fungi, parasites, molds, and the problem is that the general medical tests done by general practitioners, physicians,
Yeah.
actually don't pick them up. And very often somebody could be very, very ill, exhausted all the time, and have absolutely no idea why they're exhausted or falling ill to any little disease that comes their way. And one of the issues, like right now, for example, at the time of recording, energy prices have gone through the roof, which means people are not going to use their
Not
heating
you.
as much.
Yeah.
But the problem with that is you're going to cook food and you're going to create steam, and the house is not going to be heated. So you're going to end up with molds.
Yeah.
Molds create something called mycotoxins, and these are things which are absolutely ruthless. So there's so much going on. I remember when I was growing up, we actually growing up in a very poverty environment. My father had an Indian takeaway. We used to live upstairs, and we used to have fungus. I used to be round the clock ill all the time, runny nose, clothes, cold, and so on. And so you mentioned Panchkarma. Um, I would say, and tell me if I'm right or wrong, I would say out of all the systems available out there, certainly traditional medicine doesn't have it, but Panchkarma is probably the oldest detoxification method out there. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. Because Ayurveda is the oldest system of healthcare that we have, and Panchkarma is fully, mentioned how to do step by step, and when you should do it, who should, how it should. The whole detail is there, and so yes, it is the oldest detoxification program that we have.
So before we go or talk more about Panchkarma, let's talk a bit more about some of the detoxification methods that don't work. Let's start off with the last topic you and I were talking about
Oh, the
privately was
myths. You're talking about the myths, yeah?
myths. Yeah, let's talk about the myths. So let's talk about intermittent fasting, the myths and the truth about them. So what are you saying going wrong with intermittent people who are doing intermittent fasting?
Okay, so intermittent fasting, what I have seen, and I've seen in practice patients who have come to me, one thing that doesn't make sense to me, any food that you're taking after 6 7 p.m. in the evening, any more than needed food, I'm not talking about little soup or some little piece of something. We're talking about proper full meal. Is it's not holistic. It is never going to be suitable for you to sleep on that, for that food to not be digested and then sleep, and being that part of intermittent fasting. Because what I have seen patients where they were not eating whole day, and then they were eating 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, or 9 o'clock, big meal, and then following day, right? And I obviously saw a lot of bloating, a lot of IBS kind of symptoms. They were constipated, they had a lot of cramps, which to make me make sense. And the moment we change that around, the symptoms disappear. So intermittent fasting, yes, as long as we do whatever we want to do during the first half of the day, breakfast, lunch, eat that, and not after, even not after lunch, or at least not after dinner, early dinner, then that is a wonderful way of intermittent fasting, which is going with your body. That's one thing that I feel is really wrong.
And I think one of the things people got to understand, a couple of things is, for example, that your healing, I presume, I mean, tell me if I'm correct or not, most of the healing that takes place is actually at nighttime whilst you're asleep.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
correct.
So if you have got your belly full with food, it's too busy digesting in a very bad way because you're asleep to actually do any healing. So that's the first thing to keep in mind. Second thing, very important to keep in mind is when you're doing, and I'm not anti-intermittent fasting. I'm actually very pro-intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
One of the big issues is people will do a fast, and several actually, loads, come to think of it. They'll do a fast and not realize that if you do a full 24-hour fast or longer, you are going to totally deplete your gut of all the microbiome. So that also means that the foods that you eat have to replenish it, because 70% of your immunity is from your gut microbiome. The what else are people doing with intermittent? Oh yes, I've seen this where people are doing with fasting is after they've broken their fast, they'll eat any rubbish.
Yeah.
I'm talking about pizzas and donuts, and oh my lord, it is embarrassing to watch. So you're actually defeating the whole
Yeah.
objective of it. And just to clarify, it's so important because this is something that someone's asked me actually earlier today, which is when they fast, and I'd love your opinion on it. I'll tell you my answer in a minute. When someone fasts and say they're type 2 diabetes, they would assume blood sugar level goes down, but what they found is blood sugar spikes go up. What are your thoughts on that?
Say that again.
So they've had in essence, somebody has type 2 diabetes and they've had a fast. They've done, I don't know, 10, 12-hour, 14-hour fast, 16-hour fast,
Right.
and they found that they have a blood sugar spike. And
Ah,
so, in my view, this is what happens. So, your first 10, 12 hours, you're going to be removing all the sugar from your bloodstream.
hmm.
Then, the ketone bodies will be released, and you'll be using that as your fuel. But the problem is, of course, if you're carrying a lot of fat and if you've got a lot of cortisol active, and you will have a blood sugar spike. And so, I'm not sure if you have any thoughts on that or not, but my own opinion is this: that if you have got a condition like type 2 diabetes, start slowly. Don't try to jump into
Yeah.
it. Give it time. Never ever, if you've never fasted before, never jump into a 24-hour fast, because your body is going to be shocked too much. You want to build
24
up to
hours fast for a diabetic person is, it can be
it's a
very
big
deadly.
yeah, exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
you don't want to do that. I don't have any opinion on it because I'm not aware of the actual scientific facts on that, particularly to do with diabetes. What is actually happening? You're probably correct in what you have mentioned, but to go into any kind of fasting, long period of hours, you slowly increase those hours. You don't go into those hours straight into 24 hours. Is
Mm.
not advisable.
What about people who are on water fasting or juice fasting. What do you what are your thoughts on that? I have my opinions as well, but what are your thoughts on it?
Okay, so juice fasting, people who have got pitta constitution, okay, my vada pitta kapha.
Yep.
So people who have got pitta constitution, because juices of any kind are going to be very cold by nature because there is a lot of water content in them, right? And even the smoothies, because we am what are we adding? We're adding spinach, cold, kale, cold, carrots, cold. What else is there? What else do you add?
Apple, Brussels,
Cold,
broccoli, everything's cold. Yeah, in
right?
essence.
So all of those is cold, and that's why you have to add ginger,
Right.
right? Because ginger is going to help you to digest it. You know,
Right.
in places like India, if you have carrot juice in winter, they will not give it to you without ginger because it's so cold by nature. People who have got any kind of joint issues, they will feel it straight away. The joints start to hurt because it is so cold. Your whole system is going to get cold. So if you are a pitta constitution, if you are a hot person by nature, do juice fast, okay, because then it is suitable to your constitution. However, I do not recommend juice fast on its own. I don't
Right.
recommend that you juice fast for a week. No. You
Right.
can do it for a day and then slowly get acclimatized, get your body used to it over a period of 3 months, then increase it to maybe twice a week, something like that. But you don't just go into, because what happens is, what people probably don't talk about enough is, and I've seen it a lot. People go on these retreats, people go on Panchkarma retreats to India or to Kerala, and people go on these juice fast and everything. After a week, there is more damage done because you are not doing it to your body mind constitution. You're not understanding how your body is behaving. If you follow that, then you do a wholesome fast, and water fast just doesn't make sense to me
Right.
overall. Overall.
So okay. So for those people
And
who are
water is
not,
cold, right?
yeah, water is cold for everybody. Doesn't matter what your constitution is. So the body constitution, it's what we talked about in the last episode.
Yes.
Just scroll on our YouTube link and you will, in our videos, it's the previous one to this. Your body constitution, and this is something that I've learned from Ashish. I was aware of it, but not as much as I am now. Your body
Yeah.
constitution is absolutely critical and vital to your dietary needs, your mental health needs, and so much more. So it's very important that you don't just jump into something without understanding yourself, uh, well, in a wholesome way, holistically, right? Your whole body. So,
Yeah.
okay, so we'll again, you mentioned about retreats. Now, I don't know how many you've done, but I've been doing them since 2009 was the first one I attended and assisted in 2011. And then 2014, since then, I've done 23 retreats. Now, here's what I found. So most of my retreats were health ones, primarily spiritual health, so a lot of meditation, walking in nature.
Right.
Here's what I found. And I found it quite kind of like worrisome because people are going on to retreats, especially the spiritual type, the relaxing type, and they're overweight, obese, they got diabetes, they got this condition, that condition, and they're thinking, oh, if I meditate long enough, or if I let go long enough, or if I don't know, walk in nature long enough, everything will be fine. Here's the problem with that. You're a spiritual being having a human experience. You have a physical body. And when you do not honor that, doesn't matter how much meditation you do,
Yeah.
you're still going to be putting a lot of pressure on your heart, on your kidneys, on your lungs, and so the retreats we do. So we're going to do one coming up in spring
Yeah.
2023, and we'll talk about that soon. But what
I,
is your approach? Yeah, go ahead.
I have a point to make about
Yeah,
retreat. So, if anybody who's going on a fasting kind of retreat where fasting is involved, right, you need to prime your body a week or 2 weeks prior, especially if you're going for a week or longer than a week retreat. So, you have to do that. And after you come back, you have to slowly introduce other foods over a period of week to 2 weeks. Most people are not doing that. And that is
right.
when the damage is done.
Well, in actuality, a couple of years ago, I did a retreat, and it was all plant based, and it was amazing. And then on the last night, we went to a local restaurant and I didn't tell people what they should and shouldn't eat. And for no reason, I didn't think that was my job. I was horrified at some of the people's meal choices and the pudding. So one person who is a diabetic had a big ass. What was it? It's this one of the sweetest puddings that you can imagine. And I'm like, oh my God, you haven't even left the venue fully yet or the location, and you're back into eating crap. And I think that's the thing that it doesn't matter whether you come to our retreat individually or both
or any
our,
retreat.
but any retreat, doesn't matter which retreat you go to, that retreat is not a medicine. It's not a panacea where you pop a pill and
Yeah.
everything's going to be fine. It doesn't work like that red pill, blue pill. What you've got to do is build up to it, as like Ashish said, and then take into consideration before you even go onto the retreat that I've got to integrate some of this into my life.
Yeah.
And I've got to really embody. That's why now I don't do anything less than a 7 day retreat, 5 day. Five is the absolute bare minimum. So,
Mm.
okay, if you are going to go to a retreat, don't just go to the retreat because it's held somewhere fancy. I know of people who go to retreats in Hawaii and other gorgeous locations, 2 weeks in Hawaii, and they're in the hotel all 2 weeks. They're not looking. So it doesn't matter where the location is in that context.
Yeah.
Go where you are going to be served so you can achieve the objective, which is detoxification, if that's the kind of thing you want. So let's talk about panch karma. So panch means five. Let's talk us through the 5 stages of panch karma.
Yes. So Panchkarma is a detoxification program in Ayurvedic medicine. It is a medicinal program. It is not just this, and you definitely cannot do it for fun because it is hard work to go through all the stages of Panchkarma. And how it has been built to be a program like that, it is supporting your whole well-being. Yeah, supporting your body, supporting your mind, and also slowly introducing you to the idea of what body is going to go through. So the first stage is that you drink medicated ghee. So you take by mouth. Yeah, 50 mil, 100 mil, 150. It goes up in stages over a period of 3 to 5 days according to your constitution, so that you are internally oiled. We call it snehan. Snehan means that you are oiled internally. Then you will be having body oil as well. So abhyanga, body massages, you have over a period of 3 days or 5 days, which is followed by swedan, your favorite thing. It's about sudation, about sweat therapy. You're sweating it out. We also
Hmm.
use herbs to sweat out. Again, that is good for detoxification.
Hmm.
And then we do, after 3 to 5 days, Snehan Swedan, then we do the first karm. So the first main karm is actually after a week, 6 days at least, right? So you're slowly building it up. And then Vamana is when you give medication and you vomit it out.
So, you-
So,
so, so you're actually purging. You're releasing
yes.
toxins from. Okay. Okay. Wow.
So you're releasing actually kapha. So the chest is the seat of kapha. So anybody who has got asthma or chest related phlegmatic conditions, the best therapy, and I've seen it working, you give asthmatic patients, of course, under supervision. You don't do it on your own. You give them medication and they take all that phlegm out. And it works really well. It's done over one day under supervision. You are nil by mouth. And then it follows for 5 days slow introduction of food. So you have the gruel, the liquid, and then semi-solid, and so on. So that is Vaman. After Vaman, there is one day of Virechan. Virechan means where you purge through the stools. So
Hmm.
you give medication, you take that medication, you go 20 times, 30 times. That is a good cleanse. So you only pass stool probably 4, 5 times or 6 times. The rest is just water, and then eventually it's the kapha. Is when the pitta comes out, and we say, okay, this is a good cleanse. Again, after that one day, there are 6 days of slow food introduction. Again, you start with liquid diet one day, slowly you keep adding or increasing the content of the rice. Vaman, Virechan, and then we have Basti. Basti is the colonic therapy. So you're also cleansing via the rectum. You're cleansing the gut. You're also enhancing the gut or rejuvenating the gut at the same time. Basti is done one basti a day. So you do at least minimum. I've been doing 8 bastis every day, one basti. Yeah, Snehan, Swedan, basti, and then we finish off with Shirodhara. We do Nasya. We do where we give medication through the nose.
Nostrils, yeah.
And that is because this is the only window to our brain. There is no other way for any medicine to get into our, because brain is totally, what's the word I'm looking for? There is no other way to get into the system apart from anything that goes through the nose. And it will slowly get absorbed through the nasal barrier, and then it will get absorbed into your brain. And we do a lot of medicines which we want to give for brain function. For example, for dementia, for Alzheimer's, they're all given as nasir medication.
Wow.
So that is the whole protocol, and it takes
right.
about a month. It can take even a month and a half if we do it really slowly. And traditionally, it is done in a hut away from the whole civilization, where you can meditate, you can do yoga, you can take time to reflect, and you should do this once a year.
That's wow. That's so. Is it a month back to back, or is it a month on and off kind of
No,
detoxification?
no month. There is something every day. So for at least 3.5 weeks to 4 weeks of cleansing. But I can tell you, so the studies that have been done on Panchkarma is that you are literally creating new cells with the new energy and with the new, because our cells are, different cells of our body are rejuvenating at different spans. So within 3 months or 1 month. So with this, you can enhance that process. You can cleanse at the cellular level with the ghee and everything else that you're doing. So it is intense.
So wow. So if people are watching in the West, they're thinking, damn, I'm going to take a month off. So we're going to be hosting a retreat, which, it's
We'll
not going to
use
be a
some
month
of
long.
these principles.
Yeah. So how effective is it a week we're going to do? How effective will that be compared to, say, for example, a month?
It will be effective because we are going to do consultations with everyone before, and we will tailor make it to their requirements, so that we make sure that we do maximum amount of work in smallest amount of time, what we can do realistically.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you said minimum detox of that nature once a year.
Yeah.
What's the ideal?
Ideal is that you do full panchkarma in spring, and then you do mini panchkarma now in fall for a week or so. You can do khichdi fast. You can do basti, maybe for 8 bastis you can do, for example. That will be a cleanse on its own. Or you can do a mini program for a week or 10 days and cleanse. And in between, also weekly you should be cleansing.
Right. Okay. So
Throughout the year. Yeah.
and the thing is, if you've heard this for the first time, this, I mean, it
It's going to
sounds like
sound really
a
scary.
lot. It sounds scary. It sounds like a lot. But the reality is this is how you truly honor your body. So, for example, if you look at fasting, I grew up with fasting, and so 30 days is no big deal. Not 30 days of not eating, it's 30 days, one day after the other, one day at a time.
Yeah.
It's but then now globally, worldwide, in the West, people are doing 24-hour, 48 hours, 72-hour fasts. And so if this is new to you, it's going to sound like a big jump. But the key thing to bear in mind is your body has the ability to look after itself. But because of the introduction of all the toxicity, it is absolutely imperative on you if you want to get your health back. So all right, so we won't announce when we're going to do. We'll tell you now. Spring 2023, we will do our retreat. It'll be I can't remember. It was 7 days. We said 10 days long,
Yes.
but 7-day retreat. And if you are interested in that and you want to be considered, because there's only going to be, I think, 10 or 12 people maximum we can
Yeah.
handle, primarily because we'll have a lot of practitioners on hand. So it's a high level program for an entire week, and it's a very, very deep cleansing process. It's not like you can all sit in a room and we talk to you and everything's going to be fine. No, it's individuals have to be looked
It's
after.
doing it is the
Yeah,
key.
yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's talk about a couple of the modern, which I'll talk about a couple of the modern ways of detoxification. So two of them I want to touch upon. One is ozone therapy. So ozone therapy is ozone is naturally available. Every time there's a lightning strike, the amount of electricity flowing through the atmosphere is so high, it breaks up the O2, the oxygen molecules up, and they recombine into O3. Now, O3 is exceptionally destructive to anything that needs to live in anaerobic conditions. O3 is the only thing that will kill viruses, by the way, because it'll break the shell. It's and so because ozone is freely available in nature, you can't patent it. You can't, create a company or a product and say, hey, ozone is only going to be produced by us. It's actually freely available in nature. But of course, you can't just grab ozone from the air and say, oh, let me just breathe that in. It doesn't work like that. So
Mhm.
ozone therapy, how does this work? This has been going on for decades, actually, and there's like hundreds of papers on it. Ozone therapy is used in many countries, in clinics in Europe, including Switzerland and Germany and Austria, in places like Cuba. But for obvious reasons, certain countries don't like their profits to be compromised. So it's not, they kind of try to push it away. So, ozone therapy, how do you use it? In clinics, they will inject with ozone
Right.
directly. They'll mix their ozone with your blood, and then they'll inject it back, which is great.
Mhm.
Ozone therapy for the home use, which there's no injection involved, is actually using rectal insufflation. So there's a machine that you get hold of, and I'll put a link on. You can find a lot more about it through this link, by the way, at this Ozone Academy. So you have this machine, and it is connected to an oxygen tank, and it will generate ozone for you. And it is nearly as effective as ozone therapy in a clinic, except you have to use it a couple of times more. So it's a bit more, 20% more, 30% more to get the same results. When would you use ozone therapy? Well, think about it this way. And I've got to keep in mind that these algorithms are heavily censored. So what I'm going to say is anything that survives in anaerobic conditions. So the ones I can mention: fungus, yeast, mold. So people with diabetes, you
Yeah.
guys need it. And any other conditions, hint, hint, you need to go on to the link I sent you to. Any of these other conditions, ozone decimates the fungus, the molds, and so on. The other thing is, if you got leaky gut, it helps you to heal from leaky gut. If you got infections because you got type 2 diabetes and you can't heal the wound because of gangrene, ozone will destroy it. So
Right.
please research it for yourself. I'm not going to talk too much about it. I want you to research it for yourself on other platforms, simply because of censorship. The second thing is pulsed electromagnetic field therapy, PEMF. So think of it this way: our bodies are electric bodies. Every single atom, we've got
Yep.
electrons and protons, and the electrons are constantly moving. So in Chinese medicine, in Indian medicine, they measure subtle energy, which is basically movement of electricity. There might be other terminology used, but as far as we can measure it, that it's actually movement of electromagnetic particles. And so, no such thing, movement of electrons, which generates an electromagnetic field.
Yeah.
Now, if there was no electromagnetic field, our bodies will go to jelly. The electromagnetic field, just think of it this way: the moon you have and the sun you have, and there's electromagnetic field keeping them together, which is a gravitational field, and also keeping them apart at the ideal level of distance. If you look at the electromagnetic field of the Earth, it's generated by the the what do you call it, the magma under the plate tectonics, under the plates, and so that generates that protects planet Earth from solar flares.
Mm.
If you leave the electromagnetic field of planet Earth, then, like astronauts I'm talking about, if they go beyond that, they start falling ill, severely ill. And so they use pulse electromagnetic fields within spaceships to keep themselves healthy. So
Right.
bring it back down to how does this affect you? All the toxins that you take in, we touched upon heavy metals earlier on. Well, here's what they do. In the cells of your body, you've got membranes, and within the membranes, there's channels for the good stuff to go in and come out. Basically,
Yeah.
that's I'm going to keep it nice and simple. These channels, they're very small, very tiny,
Yeah.
sometimes get blocked. And what do they get blocked by? Heavy metals. Heavy metals, mercury, cadmium, lead, even iron. So the copper. So if you've got certain heavy metals, it shouldn't be inside of you, lead, for example. But there's other iron and stuff like that. Yes, it's part of us, but in excess, not so good.
Yeah.
So what pulse electromagnetic field does is it pulses out electromagnetic field to shock your cells into releasing
Right.
those ions. Now, just think of it this way. If you look at someone who's got a healthy prostate, they'll have certain amount of toxicity, their heavy metal toxicity. If you look at someone who's got prostate cancer
Mm.
or inflamed prostate, it's like many multiple thousands fold more heavy metal toxicity in there. That's the case with any of your body parts which are falling apart. And again, I'm being very mindful of the language I use simply because of censorship. So this is where electromagnetic field therapy is very useful. And again, click on the link, learn some more. This is about education. Now, very important. Don't go out and just buy yourself a piece of equipment to work on yourself. No, here's why. Imagine you use a piece of kit and you're releasing those heavy metals. Where are they going to go?
Yeah.
If you've not put the right nutrition, if you've not cleansed that your system, and if you've not got something to collect the heavy metals, it's just going to go back in circulation.
Exactly.
So have a look at that, research, really learn about detoxification, the different methods. But come back to us if you have questions to ask. Please ask us, and we will do another episode and talk to you more about it. Is there anything else you want to talk about regarding retreats and detoxing, Ashish?
Yes. I think naturally, what people don't realize is that detox is not only juicing and fasting. You can detox with detoxifying herbs. So there are plenty of herbs which will act on the four channels that I mentioned before: your kidneys, your liver, your skin, your breath, and will help you to release those toxins. And this you can do kind of slow burn, slowly just keep taking those herbs, and they help you to whatever toxicity or whatever toxin load is coming into your system with environment, everything else, and the food. It will help you to get rid of that. And then there are therapies. For example, when we use body therapies, when we are using abhyanga, where we use warm oil on your skin, when you do sweat therapy, it is a detoxification therapy as well. And you can use herbs. Those same herbs you can use in that steam chamber and get that herbal therapy for yourself, and that is detoxifying. So there is not only one where you don't have to buy these, by all means buy the big fancy gadgets, but if you're not there yet, then work on these things. However, as Harun has put it really nicely, if you are not working on your diet, if you're not working on your lifestyle, if you're not working on your stress factor, and you're not controlling the environment, in at least in your house or where you are most of the day, then whatever therapy you are doing, it is kind of going to waste.
Yeah, well, there's a friend of a friend. This is a number of years ago, about 4 or 5 years ago. She's a Hollywood executive. Let's put it this way. She's involved in Hollywood, and in Hollywood they take a lot of drugs. And so once a year, she'd go to Kerala, South India,
Right.
and for a full month of detoxification, and then she'll go back to her drugs again. Eventually, that caught up with her. And she was only in her not even late 50s.
Mm.
Gone. Life went because if the things that you are doing, which are poisoning your body, doesn't stop,
Yeah.
then all you're doing is delaying the inevitable. So please take it seriously. And another point, another reason to detoxify is if you've been on heavy duty medication
Yeah.
for any heavy duty therapy, medical therapy, including chemotherapy, radiotherapy, etc. If there's anybody who needs detoxification, you do, because unless you've given the full support, that stuff, it's I've seen too many horror stories. So
Yeah.
please, 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 well, it doesn't matter whether you come to us or not.
even
That's not it.
even the hormonal therapy, for example, if somebody is on IVF and they're trying to get pregnant, so of course get pregnant, have the baby, afterwards go for a cleanse.
Yeah, it's so important, and also mothers. So one of the things we found is that, well, not we found it, but scientific researchers found that women who are pregnant are carrying a lot of toxins inside of their body, and they're literally giving birth to children who are full of toxins.
Yeah.
So I know this is something that you do, and it's worth emphasizing that if you're looking to get pregnant, then go through the detoxification method. Get some serious detox because you're going to pass it on to another life, and you
Absolutely.
can prevent it. You'll pass some of it, not a problem. Some is okay, but the amount that people are passing is exponentially greater today than it's ever been. Is it a surprise that most kids are born with some kind of illness, or within a couple
Yeah.
of years they develop it?
I just want to point out here, sorry to cut you, Harun, is sometimes we see these children who are born with, some hereditary diseases or something, and eczema, for example, is so prevalent, so common, asthma, for example. And it's like, no, but the child otherwise is healthy. Where is this coming from? And what we do not realize, what they have been, exposed to in the mother's environment. And this is no blame to the mothers or to anyone, because if you don't know, you don't really know what you are exposing them to. However, with Ayurveda and with natural medicine, it says to cleanse first and then go for pregnancy, Or even during pregnancy, you can do herbs, you can do therapies which help you. And taking good diet in itself is a detoxification method,
Yeah,
right?
and I think there's one more thing to think. Well, two more areas that we've got to keep in mind is number one is your mindset and the way you manage your stress, because stress in itself makes you vulnerable to not handling toxins. In other words, if your immune system is down, or your skin's not functioning properly, or your kidneys are great ones because they're the ones that are releasing the adrenaline and the cortisol when you're
Yeah.
stressed, or when they're overworked. Guess what's going to happen? They're not going to detoxify as well as they should. If you're drinking alcohol, um, I know it's a tradition in many cultures, but alcohol has a direct effect on your liver. It's generally, for most people, it's not good for you. I know people talk about resveratrol from red wine and so on, and I'm aware that's good for you. But again, just think. I remember when I used to sell medical equipment in endoscopy departments, one of the big sellers for me was dealing with something called varices, which is varicose veins, but in the
Yeah.
throat. And the equipment was there as an emergency thing, because what would happen is someone would have problem with their liver, and the liver is going to shrink. And alcoholism is a common reason. It's not the only reason, common cause. Alcohol should, but there's a lot of blood vessels
Yeah.
pumping away, going in to your liver, and then they go through arteries, and one of them that they go through are the arteries within your throat. After a certain time, those arteries burst, and it is a horror. It's really, it's like a horror movie. So look after your kidneys, look after your liver, look after your skin. What was the fourth one? I forgot. Lungs as well. Look after your lungs. So I encourage everybody to, wherever you go to a detox retreat, make sure you cover your physical body for sure,
Yeah.
your nutritional aspect for sure, your mind, and the spiritual side as well. So it's very, very important that you cover
Mm.
all aspects. Going into a retreat which is just spiritual doesn't necessarily do anything for the physical side.
Yeah, yeah. So it has to be, wholesome. So physical and spiritual, both. And when they're both together is when you have a better long-standing results, rather than just going into spiritual and not looking after your diet and your well-being, but only going with diet and juicing and everything, not looking after the mental aspect is also not beneficial. So both of those together is the best, which is what we're gonna have.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, we both, Ashish and I, do a lot of research as well as our work. And I've seen a lot of people condemn detoxification because they've got a
Yeah,
master's in nutrition. Oh, we got liver and kidney. And again, like we said before, that your liver and kidney might be compromised. Very likely, a lot of people's compromised. And I also observe a lot of people getting extremely upset when they're talking about their expertise. And I'm thinking, well, you're not managing stress very well. So again, please keep that in mind. In the field of diabetes, people talk about insulin resistance, which is one of the causes, but there's four other causes. One big one, which actually contributes massively to insulin resistance, is chronic stress. Probably
yeah,
the biggest killer of the lot. Just think about it. In the last 2.5, nearly 3 years now, in the entire world has been under stress, except maybe a handful of few hundred families who have made a lot of money in it during this time. Everybody else has been under chronic stress. So it's so important that you address this issue. So, is there any final comments you want to make before we wrap today's episode up?
right. So with detoxification, the thing is this: not single type of detoxification is suitable for everyone. You need to find out again your body mind constitution. You need to find out your nutritional needs. You need to find out what kind of um, regularity works for you, whether it's once a week good for you, once a month good for you, once a year good for you. Whatever you want to do it over a longer, it's a long term game. It's not like you just do it quickly, have a detox and then think everything is going to work out. No, if it is not supported every day, it is not going to be suitable. Rather, as I've already mentioned, you see a lot of side effects from retreats because you are not supporting your health and well-being. So just do that, find out what is best for you, and that is why come and see us. No,
Wonderful.
but go and see a practitioner who can work with you.
Yeah, well, we're only going to have 10, 12 people. Not everyone's going to be able to see us. And then, so,
Yeah,
yeah, please work with somebody to help. It doesn't matter what your budget is, what your situation is. Very important you go to an expert, somebody who actually knows. So, this particular retreat, we have a doctor on board. All hail Dr. Ashish. So she's a trained doctor. So it's very important you do that. So anyway, if you've liked this episode, if you've enjoyed it, then please share with your friends, click like, love, and make sure you comment. If you don't ask us where you need help in, then we won't be able to give you the answers. And we would love to tailor it to every single person who actually watches the Natural Medicine podcast. And make sure you share, make sure you come back to us next week, same time, same place. Thank you very much, Ashish, for another
thank,
wonderful episode, and we will see you next week. Bye for now.
thank you. Bye bye.